Hey, welcome to the 1.1 update showcase of Echo of the Farlands. I have a few new features I want to share. I'll start with the world creation menu. Instead of the two buttons for distance and generation type, it is now replaced with the settings button that takes you to a new menu. This new menu gives me basically unlimited space to add settings and customizations, so in future updates I don't have to worry about where to fit things here. I'll just have the ability to move stuff around my own menu and not really worry about filling up the old one. Currently, there's 5 options for the Farlands, so this one, it's a work in progress. I'm just testing something for the following update. And all of the options and buttons all now have very detailed tooltips explaining what everything does. The first button is the distance. It's basically unchanged. Same settings plus the config option, which allows you to set your own distance to whatever you want. It's still accessible from the same place in the main menu, so just check it out there and try whatever settings you want. The second button is the generation type. Here, there are a few options. Some of them have static and proportional variants. Here's what that means. Static types are just that. They're static. If a static world type generates a particular feature 1 million blocks out from the Farlands wall, it will do that at any distance. So if your Farlands is moved to 3 million blocks out, that same feature will show up at 4 million blocks. And vice versa for anything you want to choose. For proportional types, that scaling will change with the Farlands distance, so choosing a proportional type with a close Farlands distance will condense the world scaling proportional to that distance. A general rule of thumb is that the static and proportional scalings are more or less equal at Farlands equals 1 million, which is the default distance. So the first of the new scaling types is piecewise scaling, so this is obviously taking different types of scaling types and stitching them together to try and make a more interesting Farlands experience. The first section is unscaled and will offer you the regular extended terrain with physical errors. The second part, I use the linear scaling type, which gradually transitions into the Fartherlands. The third part is exponential, which gives you the full stripe generation of the Fartherlands. X and Z still behave differently for exponential, so keep that in mind. The next section is what I had called the moat. So it was originally floating liquid masses that would pour into the void, but I replaced it with a solid water source in the piecewise generation type. After the moat, the world returns to normal generation. I have plans for these outer lands in future updates. Piecewise will most likely be default as I move forward. This one will receive the most development and attention as far as building out the Farlands for survival exploration. But there's still a ton to explore as far as unique Farlands generation, so that takes me to our next new type, which is called multi-trig. Unlike the other scaling types, this one I was experimenting with changing the density function of the world. The other scaling types work strictly through the manipulation of the wrap method. It lets me change the base noise value at its source, but since I only have that one lever to pull, it limits my ability to do certain things. In the game code, that Perlin noise value is processed down the world generation pipeline. First to blended noise, then at a higher level, the density function of the world. In the density function, I have a lot more than just the raw unscaled noise value to work with. I actually have full XYZ coordinates, which gives me a lot more control over what generates. Multitrig uses a basic unscaled wrap function, but applies sine functions on the XZ and Y axes inside of the density function, creating these blobby curved caverns in the world. In future updates, I want to try messing around with more combinations to see if I can rectify XZ differences in exponential, or see why linear acts the way it does. There's definitely a lot to explore here, so look out for that in the future. The next option is the wall texture patch. The wall texture patch replaces the old method I was using for wall texturing. The old method involved ripping X and Z variables from this method here and trying to use it as a barrier condition for the Farlands so I can fix the X and Z differences in exponential scaling. Although it didn't actually do anything for the exponential scaling, it sort of worked in a completely unintended way to fix the wall texturing. Basically, these values are not actually X and Z because they're also unscaled at this point in world generation. It didn't really do what it was supposed to do, but it did create an interesting wall pattern because it was basically completely random. So that's what I ended up replacing with. A random number generator that flips a certain percentage of noise above and below the integer limit threshold for the first 500 blocks of the wall. It gives basically the exact same outcome as the other one, but I have a lot more control over it, and probably in the future there will be settings to adjust it. The next option is the Fluid Aquifer patch. This is a density function patch that restricts noise overflow from reading either not a number or infinity in the Farlands. So basically floating point limits. For whatever reason, when I applied this change and saw what it does, all of the blocks surrounding liquids magically fixed themselves, fixing the liquid flowing problem in the Farlands. I recommend keeping the setting on just because of the lag, because it does significantly improve it. And the last of the Farlands options is the Bedrock Floor patch. As the Farlands progresses, sections of bedrock do not generate, and into the moat, 0 bedrock generates. This fix hard patches the Farlands noise in the bottom 4 blocks of the world, meaning that it will always generate no matter what, which means there will be no unexpected holes in the void, which will be very important for a future update. Finally, if you want to change all of these settings in a server without a GUI, all of these config options can be changed from the file before creating the world. They will apply to whatever world is created. The other big part of this update is the new Beyond world type. It is a new world type with build limits that stretch from -576 blocks to 1024 blocks. I was always pretty underwhelmed by Amplified, and Amplified was also usually just the worst way to play survival. So for this world type, I tried to make it feel grand and expansive while also maintaining most of the flatlands and some of the calmer features of the world. Most biomes maintain their original shape. Mountains can stretch up to 600 blocks, but they have wide footings and large valleys between them. Hills are also taller, but are wider as well. And biomes in general are bigger. The idea isn't to just blindly make the generation more vertically impressive, to just fly around and creative, but to also mind the scale of everything and make it bigger while still being functional. Oceans are also affected by these changes. The ocean floor, depending on the location, can stretch down over 100 blocks from sea level, and at the deepest depths can reach down near y equals -400 and generate the new Abyssal Depths biome. Right now, the new biome doesn't have much in it yet, but future updates will make it more interesting. As far as the Farlands generation and the Beyond world type, it will take full advantage of the world's extended height. So, that's the update. I was originally planning on having a lot more content in this update, but I decided to split it into 2 pieces since I already had a good feature set, and I really want to post more often. Next update, Update 1.2, will have many of the creatures, structures, and small details that weren't in this version that will make the Farlands and Beyond world type feel more lively and feel like a place you really want to explore. Next week, I'm going to do a second mod devlog with the topic centering on the design philosophy of the mod pack I want to work on, and the many problems I will have to solve along the way. Hope you enjoyed.